وأنزل الله عليك الكتاب والحكمة وعلمك ما لم تكن تعلم وكان فضل الله عليك عظيما.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على عبد الله ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. To be honest, Ikhwani, I think this room is not that big that we need the microphone, to be honest with you. It's going to be something I have to hold it here. And to be honest, once I start speaking, I don't think you guys are going to find it hard to hear me, inshallah. So first of all, we begin with the praise of Allah Azza wa Jal. And we second that by asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send peace and blessings, to exalt the mention and grant peace to our Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, to his family, to his companions, and all those who follow them until the last day. Wallahi, I really find it a pleasure and from the blessings of Allah Azza wa Jal that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to gather together like this. And every single blessing we have is from Allah, and every single blessing deserves gratitude. وَإِذْ تَأَذَّنَ رَبُّكُمْ لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. When your Lord proclaimed, if you show gratitude, I'm certainly going to give you more. So we want to show gratitude, wallahi, for this blessing that Allah Azza wa Jal brought us here today. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitated this. Even though I came from quite far away, walillahi alhamd. For those of you who this might be the first time that we're meeting, I'm your brother, Abu Abdurrahman Muhammad Tim Humble. I currently work with an institute called Al-Madrasatul Umariyah, or easier to say AMAU, where I teach, and that's based in Dubai. It's an online institute. So we teach Islamic studies in a classical way, online through the medium of the English language. And when I'm not in Dubai, I'm in Newcastle, and that's far enough. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us, and Allah Azza wa Jal bestowed His mercy upon us that we got to come here today. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitated it for us to talk about a very important topic. And it's a topic that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about it that people don't know a lot about it. يَغْفُلُ عَنْهُ كَثِيرٌ مِّنَ النَّاسِ. Meaning a lot of people don't know the importance of this topic. And if he said that about his time, what do you think about our time, right? People are going to be even less aware of the importance of the month of Sha'baan. That's what we came to talk about, bi'iznillahi ta'ala. Now, before we actually begin, I'm going to start with a couple of things, and I want to start by thinking about the importance of time and the importance of using the time that you have to do good deeds, to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the surah, all of us know, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. By time, indeed, mankind is in a state of loss. So the first thing is Allah Azza wa Jal swears by time. And the rule in tafsir is Allah Azza wa Jal only swears by something which is mu'azzam. It's very important. It's very, very significant in the sight of Allah. Allah doesn't swear by something which is insignificant. So He swore by something for its importance, to tell you its importance. As for us, we only swear by Allah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by whatever He wants from His creation, except that He only swears by something that is mu'azzam, is very, very important, very significant. Allah Azza wa Jal swore by time. And Jawab al-Qasam, the reason that He made that oath, the sentence which the oath is intended to indicate, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. Every single human being is going to lose, is going to be in a state of loss. Now I want you to think about something. You think about how many times in the Qur'an Allah Azza wa Jal describes our relationship with Him as a business. Many times. يا أيها الذين آمنوا هل أدلكم على تجارة تنجيكم من عذاب أليم. O you who believe, shall I teach you a business, a tijara, that will save you from a severe punishment? Allah Azza wa Jal said, فَمَا رَبِحَتْ تِجَارَتُهُمْ وَمَا كَانُوا مُهْتَدِينَ. Their business was not profitable and they were not guided. Allah Azza wa Jal said, فَاسْتَبْشِرُوا بِبَيْعِكُمُ الَّذِي بَايَعْتُمْ بِهِ. Take glad tidings for this sale that you have just made. What is this business? At-tijara ma'Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Doing business with Allah. That's what the ulama call it. Tijara ma'Allah. How does that even work? Why use the word business? What's the purpose of it? Because the same thing in Surah Al-Asr. Al-Khusr, Al-Khasara. It's from the terminology of business, right? You're in, at the moment you're in the red. You're losing money here. You're not making a profit. Because Allah Azza wa Jal has given every one of us ra's mal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given every single one of us a capital. An amount of money, that amount of money you're supposed to invest it. Except this is not really money we're talking about. Allah Azza wa Jal gave you a lifespan. يا ابن آدم إنما أنت أيام فإذا ذهب يومك ذهب بعضك. It's a famous statement of one of the Imam of the Tabi'een. He said, O son of Adam, you are just a few days. That's what you represent. When one day goes, part of you goes with it. This day, when it finishes, part of you has gone, you're never getting it back again. Allah gave you capital to invest. What did He ask you to invest? Invest your time. Invest your health. Invest your youth. Invest what rizq Allah has given you, the money Allah has given you. But you can buy whatever you want. You want to buy haram? It's there for you. You want to buy disbelief? It's there for you. You want to sell Jannah and buy the hellfire? It's available. It's also available to you to use what Allah gave you for Jannah. And that's why Allah calls it tijara. Because exactly like business, you've been given, your investor has given you a capital and said, go and do what you're going to do. Buy what you're going to buy, you do your trade, you come back and tell me you made a profit or you made a loss. So Allah Azza wa Jal gave you these few days of your life. Allah Azza wa Jal gave you this limited amount of money. Allah Azza wa Jal gave you a small amount, a limited amount of health, a limited amount of youth, and said, go and buy what you want. Do what you want with it. فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Whoever wants, let him believe. Whoever wants, let him disbelieve. So Allah Azza wa Jal has given you ra's mal, capital to invest. And that's why many times throughout the Qur'an, Allah Azza wa Jal describes our relationship with Him as a business. Allah has given you something to invest and said, you're free. Invest whatever you want. But you're going to come back at the end of your life and you're going to justify what you bought. You're going to justify it. And then based on that, either you made a profit or either you made a loss. So Allah Azza wa Jal tells us the default state of human beings is every one of you is going to lose and lose badly. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned an exception. There are some people who won't lose. They won't waste their life. The conclusion of their life will not be a loss. It's going to be a profit. They're going to get back more than they paid. Does any of you do enough good deeds for Jannah? The Prophet ﷺ said, وَلَا أَنَا, not even I do enough good deeds for Jannah. That's the meaning of profit. You didn't do enough good deeds for your good deeds to equal Jannah. Not even a day in Jannah. If you took all the prayers you prayed in your life and all the fasting you did, do you think it's even worth 10 minutes in Jannah? It's not. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, Wala ana, not even me. Even the deeds I have done are not good enough for what Allah has prepared for the believers in Jannah. However, Allah Azza wa Jal promises to multiply the investment you made, to multiply the profits, so that you get this huge reward for very little that you do. So Allah made an exception. Those people who are going to make a profit from their life, from their time. And those people, first of all, they are the people of Iman. And Iman, Ikhwani, is what you believe and what you say and what you do. And for that reason, Allah said, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُضِيعَ إِيمَانَكُمْ. Allah did not cause your Iman to be lost, meaning your salah to be lost. And from this, the Prophet ﷺ said, الطهور شطر الإيمان. Purification is half of Iman, meaning half of salah. So your Iman is what you say and what you believe and what you do. And that requires knowledge. Knowledge in Islam always comes first, right? فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ. Know that there is no God worthy of worship except Allah, and then seek forgiveness for your sins. Knowledge comes first, action comes second. And Allah Azza wa Jal highlights here, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. They have Iman and good deeds. Why separate if good deeds are part of Iman? Why separate between them? For emphasis. And that, my brothers and sisters, happens a lot in the Qur'an. مَنْ كَانَ عَدُوًّا لِلَّهِ وَمَلَائِكَتِهِ وَرُسُلِهِ وَجِبْرِيلَ وَمِيكَالَ. Whoever is an enemy to Allah, to His angels, His messengers, and Jibreel. Is Jibreel not an angel? Sah? Jibreel is an angel, right? Is Jibreel not the messenger among the angels? He is. So Allah Azza wa Jal here, He joined between Iman and then He emphasized Amal Salih. Wa alaykum salam. He emphasized Al-Amal As-Salih, righteous deeds. Why? To show you how important it is to fill your time with good deeds. To show you how important it is, Ikhwani, that you fill your time with good deeds. You want to make a profit out of this life, you have to fill this life with Al-Amal As-Salih. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. And you have to preach it to people. You have to share the truth with people. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And you have to be patient upon this action of learning and practicing and teaching. Why I started with this, and it's very much related to the topic of Sha'baan. Every single moment of this life should be filled with taking the opportunities that will lead you to Jannah. I don't say the opportunities that buy you Jannah, because reality, as we said, أَلَا إِنَّ سِلْعَةَ اللَّهِ غَالِيَةٌ. Jannah is expensive, like the Prophet ﷺ said. أَلَا إِنَّ سِلْعَةَ اللَّهِ الْجَنَّةِ. Because what Allah is trading with you is paradise. But the things that lead you on the path to Jannah. Ikhwani, so many of us are wasting massive amounts of our time. And I'm not talking about studies, I'm not talking about being busy at work. I'm talking about we only think about Islam Yawm al-Jumu'ah, on the day of Jumu'ah. Or we only think about Islam in the month of Ramadan. But Allah Azza wa Jal has filled the whole year with opportunities to get near to Him, to come close to Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us this, Surah At-Tawbah. إِنَّ عِدَّةَ الشُّهُورِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ 12 شهرا يوم خلق السماوات والأرض منها 4 حرم. Allah said the number of months in the sight of Allah are 12 months since the day Allah created the heavens and the earth. 4 of them are sacred months. The sacred months are easy to remember, by the way. 3 of them all come together. 3 of them all come together, and 1 of them comes separate. So if you think about the 3 that come together, you know for sure Muharram is there. Go backwards. Before Muharram, you have Dhul Hijjah, Dhul Qa'dah, and then the one that's by itself is Rajab. Sha'baan is not in those 4. Allah has given each one of these months a certain wisdom, a purpose, a benefit, which we have to take. Because it doesn't make sense for us to be only focusing our religion only on, for example, the month of Ramadan, and then leaving the rest of the months. Something Ibn Rajab said, it amazed me. Actually, I've got quite a few quotes of Ibn Rajab today. But something Ibn Rajab said, he said, أفضل التطوع ما كان قريب من رمضان قبله وبعده. He said something profound. He said, the best voluntary deeds are the ones that take place just before Ramadan and after Ramadan. He's saying that if you want to know about the most virtuous tatawwu', voluntary deeds, anything connected to Ramadan, before and after. So there's a huge opportunity then. Before we get into the topic and the hadith, I want to start with another introduction I want you to think about, because I think this will help you, and Ibn Rajab said it, I think it will help you a lot. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. I want you to imagine 2 people. One person, this individual, he hears the adhan being called at the earliest time of the prayer. And this person, he hears the adhan, he makes his way to the masjid, he makes a very nice, careful wudu. He comes into the masjid, he prays tahiyyat al-masjid, then he prays some of what Allah has written for him to pray in terms of the nafilah, the voluntary prayers, and then he waits for the faridah to come, the obligatory prayer to come, and then he prays the obligatory prayer, and perhaps he prays a little bit afterwards, and then he goes out of the masjid and he goes and does his chores, his work that he needs to do. The second person hears the adhan, keeps on working, keeps on working, keeps on working, until the iqamah comes. He hears the iqamah, then he drops everything, and he runs to the masjid, quickly makes his wudu, misses 1 rak'ah, gets into the masjid, he's missed the other rak'ah, Allahu Akbar, and then he makes his prayer with the imam. What's the connection between that? What connection did Ibn Rajab bring? Even though I'm paraphrasing, I'm adding, but generally this, what Ibn Rajab said, what connection did he make between this and between Sha'baan? Anyone got any ideas? Because it's more, go back and ask you guys. What connection? How did he connect it? We've got 1 person thinks he knows, 2 people think they know. Okay, 3 people. Okay, very good. Habib, you put your hand up first.
Maybe they use the month of Sha'baan to maybe do some voluntary fasts and some voluntary actions so that they prepare themselves for Ramadan so they can go hit the ground running.
Beautiful. So the example here we wanted is just like praying the voluntary prayer before the faridah gets you ready for the obligatory prayer. You're focused on the obligatory prayer. You pray a better obligatory prayer when you have a little time, when you're a little bit more relaxed, when you had some time to prepare, when you're not rushing. The same example is given for Sha'baan and Ramadan. The summary of the whole month of Sha'baan is a time for preparation. In every sense of the word. It's not just fasting. In every sense of the word, the month of Sha'baan is a preparation for Ramadan. Listen to what Ibn Rajab said. He said, وَتَكُونُ مَنْزِلَتُهُ مِنَ الصِّيَامِ بِمَنْزِلَةِ السُّنَنِ الرَّوَاتِبِ مَعَ الْفَرَائِضِ قَبْلَهَا وَبَعْدَهَا وَهِيَ تَكْمِلَةٌ لِنَقْصِ الْفَرَائِضِ وَكَذَلِكَ الصِّيَامُ مَا قَبْلَ رَمَضَانَ وَبَعْدَهُ. He said, فَكَمَا أَنَّ السُّنَنَ الرَّوَاتِبِ أفضل من التطوع المطلق بالصلاة فكذلك يكون صيام ما قبل رمضان وبعده أفضل من صيام ما بعد عنه. Ibn Rajab, he said, the example of fasting in Sha'baan is the example of praying the sunnah prayers before your fard prayer. You guys following what he's saying? So you know how you have a sunnah prayer before your fard prayer? We call it al-ratiba, al-rawatib. People generally in English, they just call it the sunnah prayer. Sunnah before dhuhr, sunnah after dhuhr, you know, that kind of thing. The sunnah prayer, they call it. Like, what we mean is the ratiba. He said, fasting in Sha'baan has the same position as praying the sunnah prayer before the fard prayer. Before and after. What does he mean before and after? Before means Sha'baan and after means 6 days out of Shawwal. He said this completes the flaws that may be present in the obligatory. So you know how your sunnah prayers make up for mistakes that you might have had in your obligatory prayer? So likewise, your sunnah fasting before and after Ramadan makes up for what might be flaws in your Ramadan fasts. And he said, just like the sunan are better than generally praying. So he's saying the 2 raka'ah before dhuhr is better than just a general prayer like duha prayer, which you're just praying anytime, or tahiyyat al-masjid. Better is the one that's connected to the fard prayer. So he said also, the fasting which is connected to Ramadan before it and after it is better than any general fast that is done during the year. Rather, some of them even preferred it over fasting Muharram. Some of them said that the fasting of Sha'baan is better even than the fasting of Muharram, which you know the virtue that came with the fasting of Muharram and Ashura and everything. And some of them said the fasting in Sha'baan is better than the fasting in Muharram because of its connection to Ramadan. There's another reason why it's especially good. And that's based on a principle which says that any time that worship has difficulty in it, or any time that worship is something people are not doing, any people have gone away from it, the reward for that worship is multiplied. Now, we're not saying to make difficulty in your worship. Be careful about that. I'm not saying that you should try to make your worship hard. The Prophet ﷺ didn't try to make his worship hard. But if Allah Azza wa Jal decrees a hardship for you in your worship, or Allah Azza wa Jal decrees for you and blesses you with worship at the time that other people are not worshipping, the reward is multiplied. Take the example of Qiyam al-Layl, Tahajjud, praying at night. The Prophet ﷺ, when he spoke about the things that make you go to Jannah easily, يعني تدخل الجنة بسلام, you go to Jannah with ease, and with salam, and in peace. One of the things he said, وَصَلُّوا بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّاسُ نِيَامٌ, pray at night while people are sleeping. What's the virtue? The virtue is it was hard for you, right? You woke up while you rubbed the sleep out of your eyes and you were tired, and you stood up and you prayed, even though maybe the water was cold and even though your bed was warm, but you got out of your bed to pray. And you did so when most of the people are sleeping. It's the same thing when we talk about فضل العبادة في وقت الفتن, the virtue of worshipping Allah in a time of trials and tribulations like civil war, or a time of famine, or a time of difficulty for the people, because most people are not praying. They're not concentrating on their salah or their dhikr or their reading of the Qur'an, because they're busy with the trouble that they're in. And that is why worship of Allah Azza wa Jal in times of tribulations and difficulties and hardships is worth more than worship at times of ease. What's the connection to the month of Sha'baan? The hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sha'baan shahrun yaghfulu an-nasu anhu bayna Rajab wa Ramadan. He said, Sha'baan is a month that people don't pay attention to between Rajab and Ramadan. So now we have another virtue, and that is the virtue of worshipping Allah at a time where other people are not thinking about it. Right now, if you ask anyone, what are you thinking about? Any practicing Muslim is telling you, I'm thinking about Ramadan. I need to be ready for Ramadan. People often miss out Sha'baan. He mentions Rajab because Rajab is one of the Ashhur al-Hurum, the sacred months. So people knew about it a lot. People paid attention to it, the month of Rajab. But there came a month that's neither Rajab, it's not from the sacred months, nor is it Ramadan, which is that special month, the month of the Qur'an. Instead, it is a month between the two. Most of the people don't pay attention to it. So if you give attention to worshipping Allah in this month, what you have done is you have become from a special category of servants of Allah who are worshipping Allah when most of the people are not worshipping Allah. Like Qiyam al-Layl. Most people don't pray Qiyam al-Layl. That's reality. Majority of people. For you to get up and pray when people are sleeping gives you a virtue above other people. Allah accept it. Likewise, fasting and preparing yourself and reading the Qur'an at a time when the people are not thinking about it gives you also a virtue which other people don't have. And so we have to keep in mind, I don't want to lose this opportunity. Go back to Surah Al-Asr, what we said in the beginning. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. This is now an opportunity. This is the days Allah has given you. My brother, my sister, you have no guarantee that you will reach Ramadan. Neither me nor you has a guarantee we're going to reach Ramadan. But you do have now, at this moment in time, the month of Sha'baan, where people are not paying attention. People are not focusing. People are out doing whatever they're doing and they're not thinking about it. And believe me, we all know the feeling. Sometimes Ramadan comes about like you didn't even know it was coming. And you start the month of Ramadan and literally as people say, it's Ramadan tomorrow. It's like even people now are saying to me, when's Ramadan? April, right? March. Ramadan's in March. What happened? You're not expecting it. And so what happens? You are going to start very, very slowly and with difficulty because you're not prepared. The month of Sha'baan is a month of preparation. We're going to look at preparing different things. Because Ramadan, we have to understand what are the important deeds that we're doing in Ramadan and what should we be preparing therefore in Sha'baan. And we try to bring an evidence for each one that the people before us, the great scholars of Islam, the Sahaba, those who followed them in good, also used to give attention to these things in Sha'baan. So if you think about Ramadan, what's the purpose of the month of Ramadan? Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. Allah said, O you who believe, fasting has been made obligatory upon you in Ramadan, like it was obligatory for those who came before you, so that you may achieve taqwa. This is the purpose. Ramadan is here for us to achieve at-taqwa. What is at-taqwa? We need this because we can't talk about preparing for Ramadan in Sha'baan unless we know what we're supposed to be doing in Ramadan. So Ramadan, we're supposed to come out of Ramadan with at-taqwa. Taqwa in the Arabic language is to put a barrier between you and something that you are scared of. A shield or a barrier between you and between something that you are scared of. So for example, as an example, if I were to tell you about if you had an x-ray and you go in for an x-ray, the first thing they do is they put that lead apron on you, and then the x-ray technician goes and hides behind a big screen. That's the meaning of taqwa, literally in the language, Arabic language. I'm scared of something, so I put something between me and between the thing I'm scared of. That's the meaning of a taqwa in the language. As for the meaning of a taqwa in the religion, you got to ask yourself the question, what are Muslims scared of? We're scared of Allah's anger. We're scared of Allah's curse. We're scared of Allah's punishment. We're scared of the hellfire. So what can we shield ourselves with? From the best definitions of a taqwa is the definition attributed to Ali bin Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu, that he said, "Al-khawfu min al-jalil, wal-amalu bit-tanzil, wal-qana'atu bil-qalil, wal-isti'dadu li-yawm al-rahil." He says 4 things, Ali bin Abi Talib. The first is for you to be scared of Allah the Majestic. So remember, we're supposed to come out of Ramadan being more scared of Allah. وَالْعَمَلُ بِالتَّنْزِيلِ, and you practice your religion. We're supposed to come out of Ramadan practicing our religion more. Bear in mind, practicing your religion covers 2 things. It covers doing what you're told and keeping away from what you're supposed to keep away from. So I'm supposed to be doing more good deeds after Ramadan than I was doing before. And I'm supposed to be leaving more haram than I was leaving then. وَالْقَنَاعَةُ بِالْقَلِيلِ, satisfaction with what is little. Not chasing the dunya. I'm supposed to be more satisfied with a little after Ramadan. I'm supposed to be more satisfied with a little food, a little money, a little bit of the dunya. I don't need a lot. I'm not supposed to be chasing the world. وَالِاسْتِعْدَادُ لِيَوْمِ الرَّحِيلِ, being prepared for the day when you will journey to Allah. So I'm supposed to come out of Ramadan being better prepared for the journey to Allah, for the end of my life. If that's the goal, then Sha'baan is about preparing to achieve that goal. So everything we're doing in Sha'baan is about speeding up and getting ready to get more out of the month of Ramadan. So just as in Ramadan, I want to become more practicing, I want to leave more haram, I want to be more scared of Allah, I want to be someone who is more satisfied with a little bit, I want to be somebody who is prepared for the journey to the hereafter. I will not get that in Ramadan the way I want to have it after the help of Allah Azza wa Jalla and after dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without making preparations before Ramadan comes. And those preparations, ikhwani, all of us see, right? You see how people are in Ramadan. First day of Ramadan, first of all, everybody woke up, realized it's Ramadan. Everyone rushes to the masjid. Second day, 75%. Third day is at 50%. Come on the 5th day, you think you're in Shawwal sometimes. And it goes like that. Then suddenly it comes to the last 10 days. Again, the masjid comes full. 27th night, you see people you didn't even know existed ala wajh al-ard, on the face of this earth. Don't get me wrong, there's khair in all those people. Fihim khair, wallah. We're not going to say there's no good in them. There's good in all those people. But we're talking about being from the elite, being from the people who want to be Allah's special servants. To do that, we need to be prepared and test ourselves and get ourselves mentally and physically ready for Ramadan before the month even starts. So we start a month early. At the beginning of Sha'baan, we start ourselves training for Ramadan. Listen to the hadith of our mother Aisha radiyallahu anha. She said, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يصوم حتى نقول لا يفطر ويفطر حتى نقول لا يصوم. She said, the Messenger of Allah, his habit, sometimes he would fast until we would say he's never going to take a day off. And he would have days where he didn't fast until we said he's never going to fast. Meaning, we don't say he's not going to fast this whole month. Then she said, وَمَا رَأَيْتُ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم استكمل صيام شهر إلا رمضان. She said, I never saw the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم fast a whole month except Ramadan. Never saw him fast one whole month except Ramadan. وَمَا رَأَيْتُهُ أَكْثَرَ صِيَامًا مِنْهُ فِي شَعْبَانٍ. And I never saw him fast another month more than he fasted Sha'baan. In the month of Sha'baan was the second largest number of fasts out of any month that he would fast in the whole year. So this is fasting in preparation for Ramadan, and as Ibn Rajab said, to make up for the shortcomings that exist, to make up for mistakes, to make up for the time when people come and say, well, I don't feel like I'm in the Ramadan spirit, Ramadan mood, I feel like I'm not getting it. To make up for all of that and to get yourself ready to fast in the month of Sha'baan. There is a ruling, and this ruling is worth bearing in mind, that there are two things we avoid fasting in, or three things we're going to mention that we avoid fasting in Sha'baan. The first thing we avoid is fasting the whole month from beginning to end. Because Aisha radiallahu anha, she said the Prophet never fasted a whole month beginning to end except Ramadan. The second thing we avoid is we avoid beginning the fasts in the second half of the month. There's a discussion among the scholars about it. Like, it's better for you that you start this process of training yourself from the beginning part of the month, not necessarily from the 15th of the month onwards. And the third thing we avoid is singling out the halfway point of Sha'baan for fasting. And as we're going to speak about, there's no authentic hadith from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam singling out Laylat al-Nisfi min Sha'baan, the 15th of Sha'baan night, or the 15th of Sha'baan day, other than the ahadith we're speaking about here. So there isn't a hadith which talks about the virtue. There's not an authentic hadith saying that you should fast the 15th of Sha'baan or that you should pray the night of the 15th of Sha'baan, Laylat al-Nisfi min Sha'baan. However, what there is the virtue of fasting it in general. So we avoid three things. I said we'll bring one more also. We're going to bring one more that we avoid fasting. What's the one more? We avoid fasting 1 or 2 days before Ramadan deliberately. إِلَّا رَجُلًا كَانَ يَصُومُ صَوْمًا فَلْيَصُمْ. Except a person who their habit was to fast on a certain day and then they fasted. So what do we mean by this? Let's just say your habit was to fast Mondays and Thursdays. And your whole time you're fasting Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, like that. It just so happens Ramadan starts on a Friday. Should you fast that Thursday or not? Yeah, you can. You don't give it up. But a person who says, I've never fasted any Thursday the whole year, and then they decide to fast the Thursday before the day that Ramadan starts, we say no. You don't fast Ramadan 1 day or 2 days before deliberately, except if you had a habit of fasting, you continue it. So that makes 4 prohibitions then. We're not going to fast the whole month. We're not going to single out the 15th of Sha'baan for fasting on its own. We can fast AMAU, 13, 14, 15, no problem. But we're not going to single out the 15th as a special day for fasting. We are not going to fast starting in the second half of the month, such that we are, like we didn't do any fasting in the first half and then we suddenly in the second half start fasting. And likewise, we are not going to fast before Ramadan by 1 day or 2 days deliberately where we attach it to Ramadan. People say, just in case Ramadan started early, I fast 1 more day. The Prophet ﷺ prohibited fasting that particular day. But we want to fast the majority of the month. As much of the month as we possibly can. We want to try to fast as much of this month as we possibly can. That's the issue of fasting. But it's not just the issue of fasting. Rather, this month of Sha'baan was called Shahrul Qur'an. Now that's interesting because Ramadan is known as Shahrul Qur'an and Sha'baan is known as Shahrul Qur'an. What's the difference? Ramadan is called Shahrul Qur'an, right? Shahru Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Qur'an. The month of Ramadan in which the Qur'an was revealed. As for Sha'baan, it was known as Shahrul Qur'an, the month of the reciters of the Qur'an. Why the month of the reciters? Because it was the month in which the people would prepare themselves to lead the people in Taraweeh, or they would prepare themselves to read the Qur'an. Ikhwani, I want to tell you something that a lot of people don't know about your portion of the Qur'an you read every day. Everyone knows, most people, that you should have a portion of the Qur'an you read every single day. وقال الرسول يا رب إن قوم اتخذوا هذا القرآن مهجورا. The Rasul will say, my Lord, my people have abandoned this Qur'an, they've left it. If you don't want to abandon the Qur'an, you try to have a portion you read every single day. Most people, how much did they used to read? Most people of the past, what was the norm that most people used to read of the Qur'an outside of Ramadan? Most people used to finish the Qur'an in 10 days. That was the norm. And I'm not talking about al-ulama, I'm talking about ammatun nas. The standard was that people, people who worshipped Allah, they were not, they were practicing, but people, practicing Muslims of the past, typically finished the Qur'an 3 times a month outside of Ramadan. That was the norm. A lot of people did. The minimum they said you have to do without leaving the Qur'an is to finish the Qur'an once a month outside of Ramadan. And every single month you finish the Qur'an, and you finish the Qur'an, and you finish the Qur'an. If you were really practicing, you would finish the Qur'an every 7 days or every 3 days outside of Ramadan. Outside, it's ajib, right? It's shocking, right? Outside of Ramadan, if you are considered to be like a qari or someone who's really serious about the Qur'an, they would expect you to finish the Qur'an no less than 4 times a month outside of Ramadan, and as many as 10 times a month outside of Ramadan. Ikhwani, if you think of someone finishing the Qur'an 10 times a month outside of Ramadan, what do you think that person's going to do in Ramadan? That's why you hear the stories of people, they used to say he had a khatma bil layl wa khatma bin nahar. He used to finish the Qur'an every night in Ramadan and every day, meaning twice a day in Ramadan. Some of them, they said they finished the Qur'an every day twice. That is very hard to do. Because if you imagine realistically how long it takes you to finish, obviously they're reading hadar, they're reading fast, very fast. But ultimately that's a lot. The point is that where do we stand with the Qur'an today? Many of us have not opened the Mus'haf since last Ramadan. The Mus'haf, we have not even opened the Mus'haf since last Ramadan. Now is the time. Get your Mus'haf. Don't change Masahif, by the way. It's very, very it disorientates you a lot. So you shouldn't change your Mus'haf. You should have your own Mus'haf, your own copy of the Qur'an that is yours, that you look at every day. Now is the time to come. This month is the time to come and open it and say, okay, where am I normally? Let me just try to be better than that. If I haven't read anything from the Qur'an the whole year, my goal for Sha'baan is just to start reading the Qur'an regularly, even if it's not a whole juz every day, even if it's only a couple of pages a day, 3 pages a day, 4 pages a day. But I'm going to make an effort in Sha'baan to read something from the Qur'an every single day. Some of you may say, and it's not to be shy of, some of you might say, I can't read the Qur'an. Wallah, you guys think that's strange, but you guys are, Allahumma barik, reasonably young. I see people, subhanallah, 70, 80 years old, can't read the Qur'an. Brought up Muslim in a Muslim family, can't read the Qur'an. How many Sha'baan passed you? How many Ramadan passed you? And you never thought to learn how to read the Qur'an. Maybe you say, I can read, but my tajweed is not good. Wallahi, in Sha'baan, you can finish tajweed very well. Let the ISOC assign a brother and a sister with good recitation of the Qur'an, or bring someone from the local masajid, one brother, one sister, and let them have a program in Sha'baan of correcting tajweed. Not in Ramadan. Ramadan's time for practicing tajweed, not correcting it, right? Ramadan's a time for reading. But many of us can't read the Qur'an. If you feel shy and you want to do it by yourself, I don't recommend it, and you couldn't find a teacher or we couldn't arrange it for you, then what I strongly recommend is, number one, you have to listen to a qari. The qari reads slowly and clearly with excellent delivery of the letters. And for me, I personally would advise that you listen to Al-Husari. I think, Ikhwani, I mean, I like Mishari as much as everyone, but to be honest with you, it's not good to learn from. It doesn't improve your tajweed. What I recommend, you get Mahmoud Khalil Husari, rahimahullah ta'ala, you take his recitation and you listen and you repeat and you listen and you repeat with the mushaf open. Listen, repeat, listen, repeat. Wallahi, maybe after 2-3 days, your tajweed is, Allahumma barik, very good. Listen, repeat, listen, repeat. Much better if we could organize a teacher, but if it doesn't work out, at least start listening to the Qur'an. You're going to say, but the voice is not like, I like this reciter, that reciter. No problem, listen to them in your spare time. But this is a class. This is what improving your tajweed now. Take Al-Husari. It's not the only one. Like, and I personally think Al-Husari there's nobody can compete with him from those whose Qur'an is recorded. Listen to it slowly. Then if your reading is fluent, you can speed it up. Use the 1.5 times, 1.75 times, increase the speed. So you get used to reading a little bit quicker than normal. This will help you in Ramadan. But the goal is to read properly, right? The first goal is to be able to read the Qur'an properly. So you're getting ready. Look at the mentality. Look at how people are thinking. It's crazy. Like, instead of you're thinking about, I'm going to do all this in Ramadan, right now you're thinking, now, today, I'm going to start improving my tajweed, my recitation of the Qur'an. Every day I'm just going to read. Look, I wasn't reading much. I'm going to try to read, like, say, a rubu', like, which is 2.5 pages, 2.5 pages of the Qur'an. Every day, that's it. But in Ramadan, I'm going to step it up. So in the first 10 days of Ramadan, maybe I'm going to step it up and I'm going to read a hizb every day, which is half a juz, yani 60th of the Qur'an. Then maybe, inshallah, in the next 10 days, I'm going to step it up again. I'm going to go for trying to read a juz a day. And then I'm going to try and read even more than that. In the last 10 days, I might try and read a juz and a half, 2 juz a day. Wallah, by the end, maybe you can finish the Qur'an once, which you maybe never did before. But to be able to do that, you have to start now. Also, if you're a bit better than that, if you're someone who regularly reads the Qur'an, again in Sha'baan, step it up. So how long does it actually take to finish the Qur'an every month? It depends how quick you're reading, how slow you're reading. Okay? If you are a medium speed reader, it requires from you 40 minutes a day. That's reasonably slow. Even if you're not very fluent, 40 minutes a day, 50 minutes absolute maximum, 50 minutes very slow reading. And if you just gave 40 minutes to 50 minutes a day, every single month you'll finish the Qur'an. Start now. If you're a little bit further than that and you normally do finish the Qur'an from time to time, let's go for a little bit more than that. Let's see if we can now finish the Qur'an twice in Sha'baan. And then in Ramadan, you can try 3 times to finish it. Like that. So every time you're trying, that's why they say Ramadan is the month of the Qur'an and Sha'baan is the month of the readers of the Qur'an, because it's the month where they all get ready. Hifth. Okay, maybe not all of you are going to lead Taraweeh. It's true. But even if you're not leading Taraweeh, let's try and increase the hifth a little bit. Maybe if you've just memorized Qisar as-Suwar, the baby surahs, small ones, maybe try and go, let's see if we can get to Sabbih Isma Rabbika al-A'la, half of Juz Amma. Not difficult in this time. If we have a teacher, excellent. If not, you can even get them online these days. We just try our best. We do the best we can. Ramadan comes, you say, this Ramadan, I'm going to finish, for example, Juz Amma. Wallah, you'll be so surprised. The next Ramadan will come, you already have 5 juz, 10 juz, you'll be saying, I'm going to finish the Qur'an. The surprising thing is, to actually finish memorization of the Qur'an, if you allocated yourself 5 years, it is a lot, even if your memory is not good. In fact, 5 years is about 1/3 of a page of the Qur'an, roughly. 1/4 of a page, 1/3 of the page every day. You finish in 5 years. But a lot of people never thought about it. They still stay with the small surahs. You've done Juz Amma maybe when you were a child, but now you don't remember, or you want to go a bit further. Let's take Sha'baan and let's get another Juz out of it. And then Ramadan, maybe I can get 2 Juz or even 3 Ajza, I can get to 5, which is a big milestone. For me personally, the first big milestone is obviously Juz Amma, the last 30th of the Qur'an. The next big milestone is to get to around about 4 to 5 Ajza, which is around Surah Qaf, roughly. That's the next big milestone. Well, if you get to Surah Qaf, there's no reason why you can't finish the whole Qur'an. And you've done really well. So you keep pushing yourself like that. But it has to start now. There's things you need. Maybe you're not even prepared yet. Like I said, maybe you're struggling with reading. So all that, you can get it out of the way, inshaAllah ta'ala, now. So you'll be ready for Ramadan the minute that Ramadan starts. The habit of reading the Qur'an. There is a virtue reported regarding the month of Sha'baan, which leads us to another action that we should be doing in this month. And that is that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, ذَاكَ شَهْرٌ, this is a month. يَغْفُرُ النَّاسُ عَنْهُ, people don't pay a lot of attention to it. بَيْنَ رَجَبَ وَرَمَضَانَ وَهُوَ شَهْرٌ تُرْفَعُ فِيهِ الْأَعْمَالُ إِلَى رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ وَأُحِبُّ أَنْ يُرْفَعَ عَمَلِي وَأَنَا صَائِمٌ. The Prophet ﷺ said, this is a month a lot of people don't pay attention to it, between Rajab and Ramadan. And it's a month in which your deeds are raised up to Allah. And I love for my deeds to be raised up to Allah while I'm fasting. We've already spoken about fasting, but I wanted something else, inshallah. We're going to take questions at the end, inshallah. Don't worry. I wanted something else, inshallah ta'ala. What I wanted is thinking about your deeds being raised up to Allah. No doubt, Ramadan requires cleaning and cleansing your heart. Ramadan requires tawbah and istighfar. When is the time for that tawbah? When is the time for you to go back to Allah Azza wa Jal and clean your heart? When is the time for you to take yourself to account? When is the time for you to make a plan about what you want to achieve in Ramadan? The time for it is in the month of Sha'baan. So it is a time for 3 things. It's a time for at-tawbah wal-istighfar, coming back to Allah. Because this is what cleans the heart and prepares the heart to make it ready for the month of mercy, which is Ramadan. The second thing is that it is a time for taking yourself to account. Think about it. Your deeds are being raised up to Allah. Your deeds are being taken to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is that not a good time to say, what did I do last year and what do I want to do this year? And there's no specific hadith about planning your year, but min bab al-munasaba, yani it's a suitable thing to think about. If the Prophet ﷺ said that your deeds have been taken up to Allah in this month, so let me at least think about what is being taken up for me, and what do I want to be taken up for me in the coming months. And this is called muhasabatun nafs. Like the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu attaqullaha wal tanzur nafsum ma qaddamat lighad. Wattaqullah, inna Allaha khabirun bima ta'malun. Allah said, O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah, and let every single one of you look at what have you put forward for tomorrow. What if you know that your deeds are going to be taken up to Allah? What have you sent to be taken up to Allah? What have you put forward? Look at yourself. Analyze yourself. Think about where you are and where you want to be. Ikhwani, all of you, Allahumma barik, you're young. You have ahead of you, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, by Allah's permission, time. By Allah's permission. And nobody knows how long they have. But you have time to do something amazing with your life. Don't let it be wasted. Let Sha'baan be a time where you think about what it is that you plan to do next year and how you plan to be someone better than you are this year. And that lines up with the concept of taqwa in Ramadan. Because how will I achieve taqwa in Ramadan if I'm not prepared for taqwa in Sha'baan? I'm not thinking about the sins I'm doing. Any people are saying about, for example, I want to quit in Ramadan, I want to quit XYZ. Try quitting it now. Try thinking about what you need to do to quit it now rather than trying to quit it on the first day of Ramadan. The third thing is planning the month of Ramadan. And that is actually thinking about what you want to do, making a Ramadan plan. And again, there's no specific hadith, but we're talking about the general idea of thinking about what you want to do, getting knowledge about the month of Ramadan. I'm shocked on the first day of Ramadan. Ustadh, wallah, you know the thing is, I've got this medical problem and I don't know whether I'm fasting or I'm not fasting, and I've taken this and I've done that. You couldn't have asked me 3 days ago. So, planning for the month of Ramadan before it starts. So thinking about what might happen, you might be traveling. Do you need to know about the rulings? You might have sickness. You need to know about the rulings. You might have days to make up you haven't made up. Do you need to make them up now, or you don't need to make? All of that knowledge you can get now in the month of Sha'baan. Khasatan, especially because the month of Ramadan is the month of the Qur'an. And the early generations, what they used to do is leave off all other types of knowledge. They would stop teaching hadith. They would stop teaching fiqh. They would stop teaching seerah or whatever else they were teaching. And they would give 100% to the Qur'an. Especially reading it, but also a little bit of understanding it as well. But especially reading it. Because the Prophet ﷺ used to revise the Qur'an with Jibreel every single year in Ramadan. And the year that he died, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he revised it with Jibreel twice. So the things which are knowledge seeking and classes and getting the benefits and learning the ahadith should all be done when? Sha'baan. Ideally. Not to say it's not haram to do in Ramadan, but the better way of doing things would be to get that knowledge in the month of Sha'baan. That would be ideal. Because then now you are ready for this month. You've been planning. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to manage my Qur'an, my time, my studies. Maybe you've got exams. Maybe you've got travel. You've got things coming up. But you're planning your whole time because you've already started planning now in Sha'baan. What are you going to do in the month of Ramadan? Likewise, the generality of the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, شَهْرٌ يَغْفُلُ النَّاسُ عَنْهُ, a month that many people don't pay attention to, shows you the virtue of all types of worship in that month. So there is a virtue of sadaqah in this month. There is also a virtue of extra salah in this month, because at the end of the day, it is a month where people are not paying a lot of attention. So it is permissible for you to intend to do extra acts of worship, but here's where we come to something important. What you can't do is to specify a particular time or method for that worship that didn't come in the Sunnah. For example, people select the 15th night of Sha'baan, Laylatul Nisfi min Sha'baan. However, this night, there is no, as we said, authentic hadith that came with regard to ibadah on that night. Rather, even the ahadith which came about the virtue of that night, the scholars differed, are they authentic or not? So, in summary, what we can say about the 15th night of Sha'baan is that there are two views. One view says there is no virtue and there is no ibadah. And there's nothing special about the night and there's nothing special about the worship. And the other view says there's nothing special about the worship, but there is something special about the night. And that's because there is no single authentic hadith on the topic, but some of the scholars held the view that if you add all the hadith together, week, you kind of get the idea that there's some kind of virtue for the night, but there's not a specific worship for that night, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best, which is referred to as the hadith of Abi Musa from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, إن الله لا يطلع في ليلة النصف من شعبان فيغفر لجميع خلقه إلا لمشرك أو مشاهد. Allah looks upon the people halfway through Sha'baan, and He forgives everyone except a polytheist or someone who has enmity between them and their brother. Like there's, what's the word? There's like a problem between them and their brother, the mushahid. Like between you and someone else, you've got a problem. This hadith is narrated in Sunan Ibn Majah, and it contains Abdullah ibn Lahi'a, and the one narrated from him after he lost his ability to memorize. And it contains the tadris of Al-Walid ibn Muslim وقد عن, and it contains an individual who is known to narrate weak hadith under certain circumstances, and those circumstances are present within this hadith. For the hadith is not authentic. At the same time, people said there's another hadith of Aisha, there's a hadith of Mu'adh ibn Jabal, there's a hadith of Abi Hurairah. All of them are weak. But maybe if we put them together, we can say perhaps there is something about the night, but there's not enough proof for any specific worship on that night. However, there is proof for worship on all the nights. For if you're someone who started praying Tahajjud now and said, I'm going to start, don't stop on the 15th of Sha'baan. If you're doing it on the 1st and the 2nd and the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th and the 6th and the 7th and the 8th and the 9th, carry on. But just don't single it out. Likewise, fasting. If you're fasting all those days and you want to fast on the 15th day, no problem with that. But don't single it out for fasting. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Ibn Rajab, he said, وَفِي فَضْلِ لَيْلَةِ نِصْفِ شَعْبَانَ أَحَادِيثٌ مُتَعَدِّدَةٌ وقد اختلف فيها فضعفها الأكثرون وصحح ابن حبان بعضها. Ibn Rajab, he said, there are certain ahadith narrated about the virtue of halfway in Sha'baan. However, the scholars differed over them, and most of the scholars declared those hadith to be weak, and Ibn Hibban declared some of them to be authentic, knowing that Ibn Hibban is lenient in grading hadith. Now, but we say in conclusion that it is not proven, or it is not praiseworthy to single out that night or that day. However, it is praiseworthy to generally increase in all types of ibadah in that month. And it may be that there is a virtue to that month for that night as a night of virtue where Allah forgives the people, but it's not a night where you single it out for ibadah. However, it can be, it's that hadith, if it does reach the level of authenticity, which the scholars differed about, as Ibn Rajab said. And the hadith, Al-Bukhari declared it to be weak, At-Tirmidhi declared it to be weak. The hadith has issues with it. What we do want though is for us to benefit from ibadat. So any ibadah, and remember, I'm going to tell you something that's very important to think about. I want you to always think that every one of us has ibadat that have been made easy for us. Acts of worship. For example, some people find it easy to give sadaqah. Some people find it very hard. Some people find it easy to pray extra prayers. Some people find it hard. Some people find it easy to get up at night. Some people find it hard. Some people find it easy to fast. Some people find it hard.